The Alabama State Capitol to the Alabama House Chamber as Governor Wallace addresses a joint session of the legislature.
He's out there now. You can go ahead. How many times hit this thing? John, is mic on? Joint session of the Alabama legislature assembled in this second special session will now come to order. Prior to starting, I'd like to ask that each member rise for a brief moment of silent prayer in memory of Paul W. Brown. Amen. We're gathered to hear an address by His Excellency, the Governor of the state of Alabama. Mr. Doorkeeper, will you admit the Governor and his party? Will you escort him to the front, please?
Ladies and gentlemen, we are temporarily experiencing audio difficulties in our transmission from the state capitol. We're working on having those problems corrected momentarily. Please stand by. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we are experiencing technical difficulties in the audio portion of our program, originating live in the Alabama House Chamber. Governor George Wallace addressing a joint session of the State House and Senate. Governor Wallace bringing these legislators back into special session, this time to consider, among other things, the federally ordered redistricting of House and Senate districts across the state of Alabama, the redrawing of House and Senate district lines. Also, Governor George Wallace is asking the state legislators to consider doing something about unemployment benefits in the state of Alabama, specifically the money that is being paid into the Unemployment Compensation Fund. That's the fund that pays the jobless benefits to Alabamians across the state. There is some talk of asking for more money to be placed into that particular fund. That money would be used to increase benefits under one proposed piece of legislation, increasing the benefits from $90 a week to more than $100 a week. But again, that is a piece of proposed legislation. Again, we apologize for our technical problems in the audio portion of tonight's program. We are working on those problems and hope to have them corrected momentarily. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, our apologies for the fact that we have lost the sound portion of our transmission from the State House. Governor George Wallace making an address to the members of the Alabama House and Senate concerning the pressing problems, financial problems that are facing the state of Alabama. Governor Wallace brought the members of the House and Senate together tonight to listen to some of his suggestions in the area of the Unemployment Compensation Fund and also his suggestions on meeting a March 1st deadline that has been imposed on the state of Alabama to meet certain federal requirements in the area of reapportioning House and Senate districts. Governor Wallace had the state legislators in special session last week. Again, that was to consider a number of topics, including the oil and gas severance tax increase as proposed by his administration. That was part of an ongoing legal battle between the oil companies and the state of Alabama over the proposed increase, which was tying up about $18 million in money that Governor Wallace and his staff wanted to see come back into the state's coffers to make sure that the state of Alabama could at least make that much of headway in solving some of the
South Carolina.
We understand now we have the audio portion of our program returned.
And 166 in North Carolina. When I left the governor's office, the $90 per week in those days was the southeastern average. Our newly unemployed are entitled to more than the present program calls for, because you know they are the great middle class in our country, and they belong to it, and they have been, of course, the first time in their adult lives probably been without work. I would show you a contrast of the various amounts. I'll try not to show my fingernails. Alabama's right on the bottom. There's Alabama, it comes all the way up, and we do not want to stay on the bottom because, you know, the great mass of people in this state who are unemployed and those throughout the nation, such as steel workers and auto workers and rubber workers, paper workers, small farmers, businessmen, whoever they happen to be, they constitute policemen, firemen, they're the ones that are the middle class in our country. And therefore, these people who at one time, just recently, was living a middle class standard, either middle income class or maybe a little upper, they today are for the first time tasting the defeat of, in effect, of no jobs and no income except unemployment compensation benefits. And therefore, I want to say that this state and every other state in the Union and the United States ought to do its best to see that the middle class is not done away with and pushed into abject poverty class, because in my judgment, if that does happen, we're going to have some revolutionary politics in this country, left to right. And I think all of you realize that and know that. They are the ones that give us stability and order. They're the ones that fight the wars and pay the taxes and produce the goods. And therefore, in my judgment, I believe every effort should be made at the federal, state, and local level to see that they are taken care of to the extent that someday they'll be working again. I would like to, I don't have the exact poem, the prose that Oliver Goldsmith wrote about the old country. He said, princes and kings and barons and dukes, they come and go, a breath made them, a breath can unmake them. Once a bold peasantry is lost, it can never be supplied. I would paraphrase that in this country that presidents, senators, governors, and politicians come and go. With the breath they were made, with the breath they can be unmade. But once you lose the bold middle class, it can never be supplied. And therefore, my friends, I believe that on the unemployment compensation matter, that you should surely give consideration to raise it at least to the southeast average, or at least about 3 or 4 of these states that I've shown you the numbers that they are gathering. I am hoping that labor and management may work out a position on this matter, but if they do not, I'm going to assure you that I'll do all I can to see that some bill is passed, and among those things it will raise the amount paid weekly to unemployed, especially the newly employed people in our state. I want to say that during this recession, as I jump around here, we have situations existing in this state and country that never existed before. And I hope that everyone who's listening to this and not on cable tonight would say, I'm going to give more to the United Way. I believe now that churches and synagogues can meet that mission. I know that my church and others can, because that mission, as Jesus Christ said, was, you've done it unto the least of these, you've done it unto me. And therefore, I think they today have a better opportunity than ever before of helping fulfill that mission, because we have so many of those people in our country that never tasted what they're tasting now, and they're right in their midst. And I would hope they would do that. Club and civic organizations, for instance, one has maybe a site conservation program. I hope every civic club in this state, men and women, will organize themselves to take care of part of some sector in which they live in, where there's such suffering of unemployment and loneliness, and people cannot make ends meet. I would say that people ought to give more to the Salvation Army. I think labor and business should do their part. We should give more to the Red Cross. Even my little young friends who are watching on tonight, if you're in grammar school, your class for themselves, to make an effort to help some particular individual in your community. I know that I have 2 grandchildren to go to school, and their class alone raised $200 to help somebody in some position I'm not sure of. Even the high schools and those in college. I invite you to join this if you're able to contribute to these organizations that are going to help those newly unemployed, not the chronically unemployed, because they, my friends, are being looked after by governmental programs to a certain extent. Now, I want to talk about the food commodity program. There are currently 2 state-administered commodity food distribution programs. Both food programs utilize commodities donated by the United States Department of Agriculture. The Department of Pensions and Securities administers the commodities distribution program. These foods are available to all states and consist of cheese and butter. The inventory is current in good supply. Pensions and Security has been designated as the Food Distribution Office, although orders for food are placed through the Department of Education. Distribution is provided through the cooperation of county commissions and local pensions and security offices. The program is assisted by locally donated storage space, such as local schools and private air-conditioned warehouses. Last year, the program furnished food for 200,000 households and approximately 600,000 individuals. 3 million pounds of cheese and 200,000 pounds of butter were distributed to these recipients. The eligibility for these quantities restricted to food stamp recipients only. At our request, eligibility has been expanded to serve, in addition to the food stamp recipients, also to the unemployed, foster homes, and people over 65 of age. As a result of having to rush on, I might say that they are more products than commodities than the food and the cheese and the butter and the dried milk. And that's exactly what he asked to be sent to this state to go through the distribution program of the Pension and Securities and the Education Department. On the matter of agriculture in this state and nation, we today have sent a telegram to the President of our nation, the congressmen of our district, of our state who are cooperating, and to Secretary John Block of Agriculture. Conditions in this state are becoming increasingly critical insofar as adequate food supply for some of our citizens, especially the newly unemployed who are experiencing the traumatic episode for the first time, for whom no organized program relief exists. Some 2 months ago, I constituted a task force in Jefferson County, composed of a broad section of the leadership of the area to examine and make recommendations as to the emergency needs of the people during the winter months. They have twice reported to me that conditions are even more appalling than I believed, and that emergency assistance with respect to food supply is critical and needed immediately. I feel it imperative that you at once release to Alabama and to other states where similar conditions exist a supply of surplus food commodities over and above the butter and cheese allocation you previously made. That is good, but far too little. A more substantial and variety of foods are needed. There is nothing improper with the federal government maintaining surplus food supplies so long as they are put to work for citizens who are in critical need. This is what I call on you to do. Time is short, the need is great. If our American farmers can feed the world, certainly we can feed our own people. I anticipate your immediate attention to my request sincerely. Yes, the food commodity program, and I want to tell you there are many people in Alabama in this station going to bed hungry every night. I had a boy that works for me that worked since the first of last year to help me get around, and he was never at my house during the time in which a meal was eaten. I ate breakfast and something at night, but he was not there on these occasions. The first week we moved into the governor's mansion, he gained 17 pounds. And I asked him, I said, so-and-so, why is it that you've gained this weight? He said, well, I just maybe didn't eat like I ought to. I said, let me ask you this. Have you gone to bed hungry at night? He said, I've been to bed hungry every night. I've been working with you this entire year, last year, but more hungry than that when my mother and father had 2 little checks and I lost my job. But I don't want to bother you, Governor, because I was so happy to have a job. And I said, well, you ought to talk to me. I would have certainly helped you. And my friends, this is happening all over this state. And that's why all these people I've asked to come in to help us in this matter of those who are unemployed and are hungry. I've also sent a telegram to the President, our Congressman, Mr. Charles W. Schuman, Administrator of the Farmers Home Administration, and other agencies of its sort. I am increasingly alarmed each day at the catastrophic condition overwhelming the farmers of Alabama, and that's, of course, every state. I am convinced that this is not a situation unique to Alabama. I am further convinced that we are now far beyond the point in which government at all levels must take firm, positive, and forceful action to reverse this situation. We're fast reaching a point of no return at which farmers and farm families as we have known them might well become extinct and mere relics of the past. Should this be allowed to happen, this country would face a tragic situation far beyond ever experienced in our national history. In fact, agriculture is our ace in the hole. They have done more to keep the peace by having a surplus of food than the nuclear deterrent. And I can tell you that and as governor of this state, I have solemnly pledged and fully extend to do everything in my power to aid in this desperate situation. By means of this communication, I call upon you and all other affected and related officers and officials of our federal government to take immediate steps to relieve the intolerable financial pressures on our farmers by doing all within the bounds of your jurisdiction and authority to prevent, delay and defer foreclosures and other punitive actions against those who have fed and clothed all of us and a goodly portion of the world for many, many years. Our farmers are producers of food and fiber, provide the daily sustenance for all of us and many others. Without them, this nation becomes nothing more than a prattling mob, a rabble grasping for one another for survival. If you think I'm overstating the case, you're not realizing those other nations of the world where this situation has been allowed to happen, or the fact that within these individuals, we are not, without these conditions of farm surpluses and good farming efficiency, we are not really an important nation. I call on you to implement programs for relief, to exercise your discretion to give help to our farmers, to proceed with caution, leniency, and compassion in all cases involving the loss of home and opportunity for these people. We must all act together with a sense of urgency. Time is short. While millions of dollars go to humanitarian projects in countries of the world such as Mexico, Brazil, Poland, and like, let us provide humanity, compassion, and best of all, common sense judgment here in America. I suggest that in lieu I suggest that in lieu of foreclosure dispossession, that you sponsor and or implement programs designed to provide financial assistance to those farmers in severe financial condition so as to allow them to remain in possession of their lands, equipment, and properties and continue to provide the essential foodstuffs and other agri-products so vital to our survival. We gave the other day $2 billion of interest to pay for Mexico's interest of an $82 billion indebtedness to us. We gave them $2 billion cash flow. Well, if they gave those people in Mexico $2 billion cash flow, in Brazil and Poland, why can't they do it for the American farmer? Let him stay in business. And my friend, I've also sent a telegram to the president, to the congressmen, directors of TVA, Charles Dean, Richard Freeman, and David Freeman. During my recent successful campaign for governor of Alabama, I became appalled at the magnitude of the problems created by the Tennessee Valley Authority electric rate schedules. Having closely monitored the rate-making process of the private utilities, I was astounded to find that in many instances TVA rates were substantially higher. This works an unjust hardship on the citizens of this vital area, not only in Alabama but other states as well. In recent days, it has been repeatedly brought to my attention that TVA is imposing commercial rates on the farmers and producers in the North Alabama area, and that many are now facing potential bankruptcy due to your actions. This record even more distressing when I recall the great and laudable purpose for which the TVA came into being. Over many years, TVA served in the true tradition of its originator, and the Tennessee Valley became one of the garden spots of our state. We cannot allow this to vanish. If TVA can spend millions in exotic development of nuclear and other sources of energy supply, it can devise a system whereby the poultry farmer, the businessman, and the industry and citizens of North Alabama can again enjoy the blessings for which they were once so noted. Yes, it would be very ironic that the TVA, which made the valley, would come to be the instrument by which it was destroyed. And therefore, something must happen in this case. I want to hurry along because I don't have much time, but I've also sent a telegram to the president and saying this: please allow me to respectfully request that you and your fine staff to immediately initiate policies and actions to place our nation in fair trade posture with other nations of the world. The flood of foreign-made goods into this country continues to rob American workers of their job. I do not advocate a protectionist policy, but rather fair trade. Alabamians believe that if other nations place restrictions and fees on importing American-made products, we in turn should place the same restrictions on products made in those countries. Of course, we know what tariffs did. It brought on World War II and the Depression of the 30s. And we're not advocating tariffs, building a wall around each country so that none of them could sell anything in or come in or out. That was very bad. Those have studied the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act in our own nation. But with us, with the other nations of the world joined together, really brought on the Depression and opened the matter of World War II. Well, when we talked about a moment ago about the foreign goods of other countries, in Japan especially, we got a wide open door. They got a door about like that. But I want to say also in hurrying, because I don't have much time, banks and savings and loan, the mortgage companies and banks already are doing what we've asked them to do. They're declared moratorium. They're working out all they can to extend and reschedule financing for all those who have homes and farms that are behind their payments. I would say that something about the Alabama Power Company and the people watching me tonight, when you get your power company bill in the power company area, they have a place where you can send money in which you can help pay those bills of those certified as unable to meet their heat and electric bills during this winter. I suggest all you who are listening to this broadcast, telecast, and whatever it is, speaking to the legislature, that all of you please send some money who are able to help those in this state who cannot pay their own power bills. I would like to say in conclusion to my friends who are listening, young people especially, we're going to overcome all this. You must have faith. We're going to have even a spiritual vow that's going to help us in more ways than one. And I believe that we must, of course, continue to realize that unity will overcome this. You know, we overcame, my young friends, the war between the states. We overcame World War I. We overcame the Depression of the 30s, which I was a child of. We overcame World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, and this too shall pass. And may God bless our people. I want to read two announcements here as I hurried along. I have so many things I'd like to say, but I don't have a limited time to say them. But I would like to make this special announcement that we're going to put up $2 million of the all overcharge allotment money into the low-income home energy assistance program, which will help in paying the fuel bills of the unemployed or low-income people. The ophthalmologist asked me to make this announcement. The ophthalmologists in the state are giving free eye examinations to low-income people during the month of February, which has been designed Ophthalmologist Month. And low-income people are those who are the newly unemployed, who at one time had a middle class standard of living, but now almost are in the poverty class. So my friends, I hope that you will all join together and help us bring this state through and see with all our efforts, those of you who are listening on television, otherwise, the various and sundry groups I've mentioned, that you will see during this day from now on that nobody goes hungry or cold wherever you might live or be, because there's enough generosity and goodness. Yes, the churches, as I said a moment ago, the churches and individuals have that great mission prepared for them in Alabama and every other state. And that's to help our fellow man go through something, those mostly who've never been through what they've been through. And Frank, if I'd been elected governor, I'd be one of them myself. I'd be unemployed. But my friends, this is a serious matter. I also hope that you pass reapportionment as quickly as you can, and also the unemployment compensation matter for which we came here. May God bless your deliberations, and thank you for doing what you did last week so fast. I hope you can do it this time as fast as that too. It'll save money. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Governor George C. Wallace addressing a joint session of the House and Senate. And again, for our engineering staff, the guys that help us get it on every night so well, we certainly appreciate all of your technical assistance in our hour of need this evening. We'll be back with details on the governor's address and reaction on tonight's 10 o'clock report.
All across Alabama, there are individuals performing public services for their community without formal recognition. Some of these men and women are paid, others are volunteers, but all are important contributors in making our communities a better place to live. Hello, I'm Mark Wilder, asking you to help us again this year as we seek out and reward these people with the Jefferson Award from the American Institute for Public Service. We would like you to nominate someone you feel has shown unselfish devotion in providing public services. The Jefferson Award winner will be selected by a committee of outstanding Alabamians and will become eligible for a National Jefferson Award. Look for WSFA TV's nominating ballot to be in your area Sunday newspaper February 6th, or simply send in your name and address and the name, address, and list of accomplishments of your nominee to WSFA TV by February 17th. Help us recognize these true public servants and be thinking of your nomination. WSFA TV 12 Montgomery.